Representative Bryan Cutler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of House Bill 466. And unfortunately, while I have a great deal of respect for the prior speaker, I'm going to have to disagree with him on this particular issue. Mr. Speaker, for me, it's a simple premise. It's a simple premise of what should government be doing. And I think it's somewhat schizophrenic of us to promote sales with one branch of government and then attempt to enforce liquor laws with another branch of government. That results in two branches of government spending money, pulling on different ends of the rope, and we could certainly argue not without a better result for our Commonwealth as compared to the rest of the country. I personally believe that as government and as elected officials, we should be focused on the public health, safety, and welfare of our citizens, not promoting the sale of alcohol, not suggesting that we buy a bottle of vodka on Valentine's Day or Mother's Day, as I've seen advertisements indicate, not have competing billboards along the highway, as our colleague from Adams County referenced, where we had one billboard that says the Chairman's Circle, promoting the sale of it, and several miles later down the road, drink responsibly. Mr. Speaker, we should all be pulling in the same direction. We should be pulling in the direction of what benefits the taxpayers. We've had concerns about alcohol getting into the wrong hands. I share those concerns. That's why I believe that we should be spending our money, our efforts, and our resources to enforce liquor laws, not promoting sales. Mr. Speaker, let's take a look at the current financial trends, because we've heard a lot about this asset that generates cash for the Commonwealth. And I'd like to run through some historical numbers just in my short tenure since I started 4 terms ago. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the revenues that had been generated previously, in my first term in office, 2008, 2009, there was a $125 million transfer to the general fund. Dropped to 105 the following 2 years, by 11 and 12, down to 80, which is what we have currently. We might ask, why is that? Well, there's another good example here of government pulling in different directions. We have federal mandates related to the Affordable Care Act, rising pension costs, and a variety of other things that continue to draw down on the cost of us to stay in this business. And let's look at some general facts on that cost. The Liquor Control Board's expenses are increasing at a rate of 6.5% to 8% a year, while our revenue is only projected to increase by 4%. That is why that amount of money has dropped and will continue to drop. Mr. Speaker, when you look at those numbers, we will continue to see a renewal of the decline in available revenue beginning in 2017 and 18 to the point where we have a projected loss in 2021 and 22 related to the money that the Liquor Control Board will cease to give us, but rather than begin costing us to carry on this antiquated system. There's been a lot of discussion about border bleed, and I'd like to share a story of my own. I live only a few minutes out of Maryland, and I train for amateur triathlon, so I do a lot of bicycle riding down the coast. I've ridden the whole way to Ocean City. And why do I share that? Because I go past a lot of liquor stores on my bicycle routes. Mr. Speaker, the one that's less than a mile across the state line, just in Maryland, I can guarantee you every time I ride past it, it is predominantly filled with Pennsylvania plates. And if you would look at the border bleed estimates, or the bootlegging, probably to bring back the term that was around when the Liquor Control Board was initially conceived, we're looking at a substantial amount of revenue. And it is significant when you take a look at the amount of money that we're potentially losing to our neighbors who tax alcohol differently. Mr. Speaker, I knew that the Washington example would come up. I emailed a friend of mine who lives there. And for those of you who, for choice and convenience is an important part of this bill, he said those 2 items have improved. And the issue of increased costs came up both here today and in his email. And I'd simply like to point out that the reason for the 35% increase in costs, unfortunately, lays wholly at the foot of government. When you look at the Washington state tax rates, their excise taxes and how they collect it, they have enacted the highest in the country at $35.22 a gallon for their spirits. How does that compare to us? Pennsylvania clocks in at $7.21 a gallon. Mr. Speaker, Washington state's high prices are not a result of the privatization. It's the very fault of the government who raised the tax rates. And we're in the same position here today, having a government holding an asset that is projected to eventually lose money. And I would offer, we need to make a business decision. Is this a core function of government? Should we continue on the path that we have done so? And the argument for public safety is a meritorious one. But if public safety were defined by state control, I would assume, as the chairman previously pointed out, that Pennsylvania would have one of the safest amounts of alcohol-related injuries and deaths. And that is not the case. If you look at the Mothers Against Drunk Driving report for the nation in 2013, Pennsylvania got 3 out of 5 stars, solidly in the middle of the pack, to be beaten by Illinois and Georgia, who had 5 stars and 4 stars respectively, and don't have the same level of control. Mr. Speaker, I agree public safety should be a paramount concern, and it's the reason that I support the bill. But for me, I believe that we should get out of the sale of alcohol to promote public safety, and that's why I support House Bill 466 and would encourage all of our colleagues to do the same. Thank you.